As many of y'all probably know by now, the Panasonic Lumix GH6 has been one of my cameras that I've had for over a year, and I have been growing to love with it over and over again. Well, after some time and after some discussion, I am willing to say right now that Panasonic Lumix GH6 is, in my personal opinion, Panasonic's best camera for video. And with the latest firmware update with Blackmagic Raw, this is going to be controversial, but here it goes. It ain't even close. What's up, everybody? My name is James Jackson. I am a filmmaker out on the East Coast, and I'm just someone here who just loves to talk about film, loves to talk about gear, loves to talk about cameras, and all things film related. And I just love to show you guys and hopefully give you guys some enlightenment. And while I am on my journey in my career, help you elevate your journey on your career. So if that's something that you're looking for, definitely make sure to hit the subscribe button and hit the bell so you can stay up to date on all the content going forth. So yes, the GH6, really, Panasonic's best camera for video. Yeah, yeah, I'm serious about that. This camera is truly become a very impressive thing, even given the state of the market. So you may be wondering, really, a camera that has only contrast detection autofocus, a camera that has a micro four thirds sensor with very niche. This camera is Panasonic's best camera. Yes, it is. And I'm going to go over this and I'll explain why. And there's a couple reasons. So the first reason is just given the fact that it is a camera that you want to shoot all various forms of content. You want to shoot 4K, you want to shoot 5.7K, you want to shoot 4.3 open gate, you want to shoot 4K 120 frames a second, you want to shoot 2K 240 frames a second. You can do all of that without doing any sort of cropping in on the sensor. And all of the ones outside of the 4K 120 that I mentioned and the 5.8K, actually, no, that's not true. Even with the 5.8K now, we'll get to that in a second. You can all do it in a 10-bit 422 or greater codec, which is truly a remarkable thing. Well, actually, probably now even the 4K 120, in theory. But we'll get to that in a second. So having all of those capabilities to do those all without cropping in on the sensor at all gives you so much flexibility in the capabilities of which you can use this camera for. With every other camera that they use on their full frame lineups, if you go beyond 30 frames a second, you must go into the Super 35 mode, so you must crop in. And the 4K only goes up to 60 frames a second, which isn't bad. It's still a pretty good thing. The next thing I gotta give a shout out about this camera and why I think it's in a class of its own is the fact it's the only one currently of Panasonic's lineup that actually has ProRes 422 built in. Every other camera, yes, you can go to SSDs, but if you are familiar with any of some of the recent content I have produced recently, I am not a fan at all of going that route. I've talked about the reasons why it's not good, and I advise against going against SSDs in another video, which you can check out here in the description, as well as in the description below. But long story short, you're adding third parties and multiple parties. You're adding different plugs and things where something could go wrong. And on top of that, that will be your only recording option when you are doing your content. So you can't go to a backup when you're recording to SSDs. You can do this if you go out via HDMI and go to something like an Atomos recorder or a Blackmagic Video Assist and record to one of those. And in those cases, you're still shooting ProRes options, which to me is the better option, because you can go outside and record externally the ProRes, and while still being able to record to your backups and have backups here. So in the choice of SSDs versus going to an external recorder, the external recorder is just the better option. The next big thing of why I feel this is the best camera that Panasonic has ever produced is the rolling shutter. It is extremely good. Now, it is not class leading rolling shutter, but it is really good rolling shutter. I mean, just using the open gate, you're getting about 11 to 10 to 11 milliseconds, which is pretty solid. It's just behind stuff like the A7S III and just behind cameras like this camera I'm recording right now, which is the Ursa Mini Pro 12K, which is, I believe, around 9 milliseconds. Still not near something like the Sony Venice that has like a 3 millisecond record speed, but it still has very good, very classic roll shutter versus the full frame lineups, where essentially you're looking at 25 milliseconds. It's not something great about. Now, if you drop to Super 35, I think it goes to about 15 milliseconds, which gets you to that quality of basically what I think the starting benchmark for what is expected of current cameras. And this sort of goes into sort of my thoughts of the full frame lineups, especially those with the similar 24 megapixel sensor, the S1H, the BS1H, the S5 II, the S5 IIX. It's just the fact that, my personal opinion, it's more of, those are more Super 35 cameras or Super 35 sensors that have some capabilities in certain situations to deliver full frame content. But again, this is something that, using the full sensor, you can get the most out of. Now, I'm not going to lie. If you're someone who is more about, who needs the best autofocus performance you can get out of a camera, you're someone that really is into the full frame lineup and the full frame thing, I get it. Look, I'm not going to sell you on that. Sell you on this camera. And I totally get it. To me, the only thing holding back the GH6 to me is the lack of variety of good quality Micro Four Third glass. There isn't a lot. I think, to me personally, some of the best ones is like this one right here. This is 10 to 25 in terms of zooms, which I've reviewed. I'll leave a link up here for you guys to take a look at that. But also in terms of primes, I'm looking at things like the Laowa Argus 18 and the Argus 25. And then really, to me, the next best options are the 7 Artisan 35 and 50 millimeter lenses in terms of primes that I feel really give you the best video performance, or in terms of what you can do in getting the best out of a camera like this. And maybe I'll go into more what my really stickling, and because I feel like when people are designing Micro Four Third lenses or people are looking at them, it personally feels like they're looking at it again from a photography and a full frame lens, and I'm just looking at it from a video. And I'm probably going to do a video about it, but there's some specific things that I look for in terms of glass that is not there in Micro Four Thirds lenses, but they could. So I'll talk about that. But again, as I said before, if you guys are just about autofocus, you must have autofocus, and you have to shoot on full frame glass, I get it. Then probably the S5 II and the S5 IIX are probably the better option. But I will say this. What ultimately says to me why I finally said it ain't even close that the Panasonic GH6 is the best option is the latest firmware that has came out about it, which allowed it to shoot Blackmagic Raw to the camera. And by the way, I got to give a big shout out to Blackmagic. They have given me the Ursa Mini Pro 12K, which I am filming on right now, as well as the video assist to both review for the GH6, but also for a project that I have coming up in less than a week. And this update really did seal the deal for me. The reason why it's special is because this is the only camera option to date, as of right now, that gives you the ability to shoot open gate, the full open gate in RAW. None of the other cameras, the S1H, the BS1H, the S5 II, the S5 IIX, none of them give you the option to shoot in the 32 open gate of the camera. Whereas here, you can shoot 5.8K in the full 4.3 open gate mode, which it's been one of the things that I've always said is one of the biggest selling points, and why now I'm officially stating the GH6 is the best social media camera. Because of that 4.3 option, it gives you so much flexibility of what you can do in terms of deliverables. You can deliver for a 16:9 or 17:9 scope, but then you can also create some 9:16 vertical video content where you get more real estate out of the camera versus using something like a 16:9 and then going into 9:16. So just in one shot, it gives you the options. And now the fact that you can shoot 12-bit RAW with it, because before it was a great option, but it was in a 10-bit 420 option and an H.265 codec that if you don't have the latest like MacBook or the latest specs of computers, it is grinding and you're going to have to shoot proxies. You don't have to do that anymore. You can now shoot Blackmagic Raw on this camera with all the options that you have here, and you're not going without running into an issue. So you can now shoot 4:3 12-bit RAW. The other cameras, in order to shoot 4:3 or any sort of like aspect ratio of like 3:2 or 4:3, you have to crop into you have to crop into Super 35 in order to shoot it on the other cameras of the full frame lineup. This one, you actually get to use the complete full sensor. And that, to me, is the game changer and what ultimately sealed this fate. That the GH6, it's small, lightweight plus, it's fully weather sealed, it has great IBIS, it is a camera that has all the flexibilities that you need without going too big. It is now, in my personal opinion, Panasonic's best video camera that they have on the market. At least that is not a VariCam. But this is it for me. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know. Leave your comments below. And as always, make sure to hit that subscribe button. And until next time, take care, everyone.